Thank you very much for joining us. We begin with something that has just taken place a few hours ago, and a British man accused of plotting terror attacks on the Kenyan coast has been jailed for 9 years in Mombasa. Jermaine Grant from London was jailed for 9 charges related to trying to illegally obtain Kenyan citizenship. And Francis Ontomo is going to be joining us later with the details from Mombasa. But now straight on to another developing story, and the Director of Public Prosecutions has directed the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to interrogate all parties concerned with the Eurobond. In a letter to EACC, CEO Halake Wako and CID boss Ndegwa Mohoro, Tobigo has directed that the files be presented to his office for further directions in the days. Yesterday, CORD gave the government 14 days to explain how the proceeds from the bond were used. According to the coalition, the government has failed to account for 140 billion shillings raised through the bond. CORD leader Raila Odinga said that they had sent letters to local and foreign institutions involved demanding details of the transactions. However, in a response last evening, Treasury invited to scrutinize documents of how the money raised through the bond was used. Raila is expected to visit the Treasury on Friday.
Of the Eurobond. The government books regarding the Eurobond do not balance. Indeed, it is now clear that official accounts have been cooked and continue to be cooked. Some of them are up on the Treasury's website, so it's no secret. The statement of government cabinet secretaries, the principal secretaries, and other officials contradict each other. At the very least, the government cannot account for over 140 billion shillings. You can't misplace $1 billion, however rich or reckless you are. Even $1 billion shillings is hard to misplace. It's not pocket money. Even if it had been spent in Kenya, you would have felt it. Instead, the economy today is contracting. We have dispatched demand letters to all local and foreign institutions that were involved in the Eurobond saga to demand very specific answers.
Now we will be going back for a discussion on that developing issue on the Eurobond. But right now, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission nominee chairman, Philip Kinusu, and 4 nominated commissioners are currently undergoing vetting by the National Assembly. Now, the 5 are appearing before the House Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Kinusu was the first one to face the team chaired by Inaboy Koi, Member of Parliament Samuel Chepkonga. Our senior parliamentary affairs reporter Patrick Amimo has been following the vetting processes there, and he will be joining us shortly. But for now, let's just listen into what is currently happening.
With all due respect, and I really want this to be marked, if really we need to fight corruption, we literally politicize each and everything. Politicizing issues that would have gone professionally silent to be undertaken and brought to book is always destroyed by bad politics. And I think one of the challenges that we're really suffering from is we are politicizing everything. We glorify the victim, and we also punish the innocent through political statements, politicizing, and making judgments. And I think we really need to be starting from ourselves to give the fight about corruption in a more, professional way. That aspect of politicizing is also carried over. There's another connotation, of course, as you honorable mentioned, that house of integrity is occupied by people who are not having any integrity. That generalization of perception, maybe we hope the new group of EAC members are maybe people who might have integrity. And I think we also needed to have that objectivity and view things in a more objective, and that is part of our constitutional values, actually. Looking things objectively and dealing with them fairly. If we really follow that, I think we can be able to fight the corruption. But if we do the way we are doing things now, politicize every little thing that comes, whether it is good or bad, that's the biggest challenge. And of course, when we politicize, you will see what is going to happen. Every funeral, every fundraising, it is the same issue. If Kenya, currently we are told 8th, when I was in studies and I was in the UK, when Kenya was the worst, 1991-92, any penny you take out for your dollars, it was being written on your passport. And I had a classmate of 25 nationalities in the class where I was. And when I introduced myself, the lecturer said the guy from the lucky country. That's 1991-92. When, you know, everybody will cut us, whatever. Kenya is a very, very valuable country. But the only people who don't know the value of Kenya are Kenyans themselves, with all due respect. It is us. Before, if you want to know Kenya, they will tell you, of course, the runners are Kenyans. That's how they know Kenyans. The big five, yeah. Now, actually, corruption is another one. And this is a disaster, with all due respect. It's a disaster, and we must fight it. We should not be known as a corrupt nation. And at my own disposal and with my own ability, I really would like to change that in the best way I can able to, so that this Kenya becomes top among the least corrupt, as we are topped up in athletic and other things, rather than being among the corrupt. Thank you. Finally, more education. What's the role of the EACC? Thank you. And together, as you mentioned, I think the National Steering and Anti-Corruption Committee is a very vital committee. It looks more on the issue of publicizing and what we call sensitizing or stigmatizing. We destigmatize AIDS, but we stigmatize corruption, because this is an evil that people should run away from. And I think that committee has done a lot, but with all due respect, all the years, one of the challenges had been minimal funding. And the concept of, when you hear of EACC, people, the first time when they see you and you want to preach, the first thing that comes to their mind is that culprit aspect. You want to jail, you want to investigate. But I think this committee is a more able to go into the what you call the community, and their words are easily taken. And with this empirical, who use yes? How many of our researchers are rotting the shelves? If you don't implement research, it becomes useless. We must look this, and I hope the Parliament should have these reports in there.
Right, that of course is the happenings that are taking place in Parliament. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission nominee chairman, Philip Kinusu, and 4 nominated commissioners, of course, undergoing vetting by the National Assembly. We are still following up on that developing story, but we now want to go back to our top story that I had highlighted earlier, of course, in regard to the Eurobond and the allegations that are coming now. Let me just go through some points, sort of like a timeline of what has been happening. And of course, the Eurobond was floated by Treasury CS Henry Rotich. That was in June 2014. Now, that initiative began with roadshows from the US to the UK, covering San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston. It also went to New York and, of course, finished in London. Now, in June 2014, President Uhuru Kenyatta also gave it a clean bill of health and said that he was very confident in it. He declared that the Eurobond will definitely improve the economy and stabilize the currency, stop government borrowing from domestic markets, which was indeed ailing our economy, thereby helping drive down interest rates, which would have boosted investments, spur economic growth, and provide growth, of course, to the people and their businesses. Now, but that is not what is happening currently, and that's what the reason that many people are coming out concerned about this Eurobond, because bank interests, as you would imagine, are at their highest in more than a decade. Inflation has also gone high, and the government is almost broke if you speak to economic analysts. Now, in June 2014 also, now the Eurobond successfully raised 175 billion shillings from the international market. Now, this particular money would have been used to pay for key infrastructure projects, among them the Lamu Port, irrigation, especially the Galana irrigation scheme, and generation of electricity. Now, all these things, if successfully implemented, they would have led to a reduction, obviously, in the cost of electricity and increase in food supply, among other benefits that could, ease the cost of living for the Kenyan. Now, that, of course, is a reason that there are many questions about this particular Eurobond. And so fast forward a year later, and in October 2015, the Eurobond scandals began to emerge, and an alarm was sounded over the use and accountability of these monies. Now, the Controller of Budget, Agnes Odhiambo, if you remember, back in about 20th of October this year, ignited a national debate as to whether something fishy was going on with the money that was raised from the Eurobond. Odhiambo said that the money from the Eurobond was deposited in an offshore account over which she had no power. Now, December 2015, that was yesterday, opposition leader Raila Odinga also raised concern over the 100 billion shillings from the Eurobond. Now, Raila said the government books regarding the Eurobond did not quite balance, and figures have been cooked to tally. The opposition coalition therefore wrote demand letters to banks involved in the Eurobond, demanding an audit of the Eurobond transactions. Well, Raila says that these parties that were involved have to respond in 14 days. So that has just been a simple and basic chronology of events right from June 2014 to this year. And so we want to speak to Paul Wafula, who is a reporter here at the Standard Group. He has been following this particular issue for quite some time now. And Paul, if you can hear me, maybe you can just, from where you sit, from the process, beginning June 2014 up until now, what can you comment about this whole process to the point now we're having these different allegations on the Eurobond?
I think the process started off quite well, and it was quite a breakthrough for the Kenyan government for that matter. This was the first Eurobond we have ever floated, actually, in the international markets, remember. And we actually attracted over 400% of the subscription. This means that the international market really responded, and as rightly mentioned, we went out on what was essentially something like a beauty parade, trying to show the world that this is what we want to invest the money. Our economy is this stable. And we are ready to do everything that is important to be able to get this money out. But then rain started beating us when actually the spending of this money started to trickle down into the country. And you have a situation whereby you cannot finger or put a hand on where the money has been spent. So that's where the problem is, because 250 billion is quite some huge amount of money that can be spent, and the country does not notice. So I think that is the problem that we face ourselves in right now.
Was not ready to receive this amount of money, and not even that. There are so many projects that this money was intended for. The Galana project, the Lamu port, and so many other infrastructural development. Does it mean that there was an issue into this money goes straight there? Like, was there time that was being bought for different individuals to benefit from this money, quote unquote, illegally?
As it stands now, every word that comes out is easily to be believed. Because if you look at how the government has handled the entire explanation on the Eurobond issue, there's a lot of questions that still remain unanswered. For instance, we have a breakdown of how the money has been spent. And all we have is that 60 billion has been spent in infrastructure, so much money has been spent in energy, another 40 billion has been given to the Ministry of Devolution, and so on and so forth. But when you ask yourself, where is this infrastructure? Can you show us a road? Remember, Thika Road, it took between 35 to 40 billion to put it up. So a figure like 60 billion being put in infrastructure on roads, for instance, we should be able to see that.
So if this is not, we cannot be able to see a road that has been built, we cannot be able to see any factory or any industry where the money has been put. I don't think it's right for us to say that the money has been properly spent at this point.
I mean, where the money is, because according to Treasury, they say that, you know, the controller of budget knows where this money is. Actually, let me just read something here. You know, it responded to the claims that Raila had, saying that there was nothing to hide. The proceeds from the Eurobond were applied prudently, productively, and lawfully. So if this is the, you know, information from Treasury, then where is this money? As you say rightly, that, you know, we cannot really see this project, you know, actually got the money, and, you know, this project was done as a result of the money.
The fact is, what is not in dispute at this point is that the money was, we got the money into the account, but this money has not done what it was supposed to do. Because you remember, one of the main reasons was that we are going to borrow this money so that we reduce domestic borrowing. That has not happened. I mean, the government has gone on an overdrive. There's a lot of appetite for borrowing. And until recently, when there was a lot of noise on borrowing, that the government put brakes on the borrowing from the domestic market. And on the other issues of infrastructure, where we are looking at the Lamu port and the other infrastructure projects that were put up, there's nothing to show for this money. So I think the government has to come clean. And for me, from where I sit, what this paints for us, because next time we go out into the international market to get money, these already will be a big spot on our credit rating, on our ability to manage finances. And it does not do us very well if a simple explanation that Treasury should give, like, look, we got this money, 20 billion was spent on this road, 15 was spent on this agriculture project, 5 billion was spent on this. That is not too much to ask for, especially as taxpayers. Yes.
Right. Paul, maybe finally you can just briefly tell us, so who would be the right person to, quote unquote, crucify if indeed it emerges that this money was not used for what it was meant to be used on?
You see, at this point, the person who is responsible is a Treasury CS, because this is a custodian of all the public resources. So he's a person who will be able to tell us where the money is, because that is exactly his job. So I think the Treasury should tell us.
Right. Thank you very much, Paul Wafula there, joining us from our City Centre studio, just giving us a breakdown of the Eurobond and, of course, the allegations that are now currently have been brought to the fore by opposition leader Raila Odinga. We'll be, of course, keeping an eye on this developing story. Now, as the world marked International AIDS Day yesterday, children orphaned and left vulnerable by HIV and AIDS in Meru were treated to an early Christmas. Now, the children who are under the care of the Lian Children's Home were showered with gifts as well as food, clothes and toiletries. Take a look.
I was left alone, having no one to take care of me. I worked because people like you come in and they help from 2000 and Shoshone.
Ningeshukuru sana tukipata kaa ni shamba tunajenga nyumba ile watoto watatosha juu hapa ni nyumba moja tumerent lakini iko na rooms mingi. Sasa ndio tunajaribu kuwawanya hawa watoto juu tuko na vijana girls, lakini Mungu anatuwekea hiyo hekima ya kuwatunza vizuri.
They have so many problems, especially food stuff, about school, and the home itself, they are renting. So I came up with the friends and organized for this day. Ndio tukuja ati tuwasaidie kidogo, tuwafanyie Christmas hari, watu wengine wakienda Christmas, pia they can have food, they can have something to celebrate with.
Right, let's take a short commercial break. We'll be right back on KTN Newsdesk. Newsdesk, let's move over to sports. And we start with boxing. Omar Rajab Kasongo is among the few boxers in Kenya who have won medals for Kenya in both Commonwealth and All Africa Games. The boxing legend, who was at the peak of his career in the late 90s, is now a local boxing coach. Robinson of Kenya spoke to him and filed the following reports.
Many a generation today might not recognize his name in the first instance. Changing times and shifting generations, but in the early 90s, Omar Rajab was a household name. Meet the former Commonwealth and All Africa Games heavyweight champion, who once ruled the boxing ring and commanded respect across the world for his craft.
Football unacheza na watu, unaona mtu mwingine ameanza ku slow down, na nyinyi mna pick up pace. Kuna coach pia aliniona niko mzuri kwa boxing pia. Ndio akanimenta akaniambia wewe afadhali baki pande boxing, lakini bado niko nacheza football bado tu.
Omar won a total of 6 gold medals in his 20-year illustrious career. He singles out his win 1994 Commonwealth Games as his best victory ever.
At the time nilikuwa light sana kwa light heavyweight. Hapo nikapandisha tu hivyo. Nikajisurprise mwenyewe na kupiga watu wote wako hapo juu, ndio hiyo ilinifurahisha kabisa.
Nicknamed Kasongo, Omar Rajab, who began boxing at the age of 10, says today's boxers have run away from entertaining boxing that was the rule of the thumb in 1980s and early 90s.
Sasa vijana siku hizi hata unapata mtu aende na akili ya kucheza boxing, aenda na akili tu ati apige ngumi moja ama mbili, alafu afanye mambo zake.
The former heavyweight champion, who retired after going semi-professional in Denmark, has now resorted to giving back to the community by training young boxers. The former world number 5 feels the government is yet to appreciate stars who once brought glory to the nation.
Watu wa Ministry of Sports kama vile wangetafuta watu at least hata either kitu kama pension ama hata medical scheme. Watu wengi pana huumia sana. Mimi nasikia kama jina watu wameumia huko, lakini mtu anaumia pa Nairobi. Aenda kujificha ushago.
With Kenya yet to make an impact in world boxing in the 21st century, the former heavyweight champion hopes to see Kenya back to its glory days. Robinson of Kenya, KTN Sports.
That's why we wind up this edition of KTN Newsdesk. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Betty Okari. Have a lovely afternoon.